You know, when you're wrong, you're wrong. And while I can't say that I'm ever really happy to be wrong, I am happy to admit when I'm wrong. And this time around, I am also happy that I'm wrong. So let's talk about why I'm wrong, shall we? My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel. Hello everyone. As
Unicorn
always, if you
Overlord.
enjoy what I do around here on the channel and my coverage of the gaming sphere, especially strategy RPGs like Unicorn Overlord, a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so very much. So what is it that I'm wrong about? Well, I mean, it's permadeath not being in Unicorn Overlord, right? I'm not wrong about the fact that it doesn't exist. We all know it doesn't exist at this point, but something that I spoke about when it was first revealed that permadeath does not exist in Unicorn Overlord, I expressed my disappointment with that fact and my concern that it was going to have an overall cheapening or lessening effect on the game, right? This is a sentiment that was shared by a few others that I know of, other people in the comments, as well as good old Coffee Potato was expressing his kind of disappointment, thinking that it might make the game a little bit too easy, that it kind of takes away from the punch of leading an army if you can't lose your units if you're not careful about the way you handle them, especially when you can hire generic mercenaries left, right, and center. It's war. You lose people in war, right? And if you're playing a war style game, if not a war game in mechanics, but that's the idea, the setting, the theme, the story, then you would kind of expect that if someone goes down, maybe if they don't get back up in a certain amount of time, you don't take some sort of action to save them, then they could be gone forever, right? And I love systems like that. From the comments that I've seen when I was first discussing this topic, it seemed like people are largely opposed to permadeath nowadays, which I think is a shame because I think it can really add a lot to the experience of playing a game. But for me, it's definitely something that I think more games should play with, even if it's an optional setting, that kind of thing. So I am happy to say, though, I no longer have that concern. So today we're taking a little bit of a break from guides and character overviews and the like, just so I can address this, because I've played the demo 3 times now, twice on stream and once off stream, as well as a 4th run that I have going now as I've been gathering information, testing stuff. And the way Unicorn Overlord flows without permadeath is phenomenal. We're going to talk about why. First off, clearly Vanillaware did put a lot of thought into the decision to not have any form of permadeath in Unicorn Overlord. We saw in that one interview with some of the devs that it is something that they talked about a lot. They were back and forth on it, and ultimately, after a lot of discussion, they decided against it. And while I was worried that that was kind of going to be just like a last second kind of thing, it's clear mechanically it was not. We have so many different facets of gameplay that interact with characters being temporarily felled on the battlefield. We've got the resurrection orbs as a consumable item, something that you have to make sure that you meter out if a unit loses a character or a soldier. Like, do you spend one of these rare and fairly valuable items to resurrect that individual now to bring the unit back up to fighting strength? Do you maybe try and wait, see if the unit can push forward and continue to fight? Do you have them retreat back to a base where they can, over time, let that person be nursed back to health and go back out onto the battlefield? Maybe you use an ability from one of your characters, like your soldiers, that can resurrect one of your allies. There's a lot of different ways to play with your units being downed. And because Unicorn Overlord definitely seems like a game that wants there to be as equal footing as possible between you and the AI also has to worry about this. If you beat an enemy unit and a couple of their soldiers go down, but they don't get completely routed and they're on a base, if you don't beat them fast enough, their units will get back up. They also have soldiers that will resurrect their allies. And while they don't use consumables, they are able to kind of manage this system in a way that makes it a very push and pull type of deal, especially if you're playing on expert. The number of times that I've been pushing forward, working on a hard boss squad, and then finally get maybe like their big tank or one of their healers or something, and finally bring them down, only to have an enemy soldier res them or have to take a rest because I've run out of stamina, and by the time I'm ready to go again, the enemy squad has had a chance to resurrect those units and I've got to bring them down all over again. It's challenging, it's tough, it's interesting, and it makes for a more engaging gameplay loop, specifically because it's part of the mechanics. If this is something where like a soldier goes down, right, and they're just gone, for that chapter, the rest of that chapter, or maybe you can get them back if you like garrison the unit and let it restore over time, whatever, but it's very limited in that regard. It would feel kind of cheap, right? Because they'd be acting as if you had lost that soldier, but only for that one mission, and then they'd be back. And it's like, well, where the heck were you? If there was maybe some mention of like, oh, taking a wound or something like that and having to step out, it was addressed in the mechanics that way, it could still be okay. But the way the Unicorn Overlord is handling things is so much more satisfying. It becomes another facet of resource management, of tactical decision making, of figuring out when and where and how to maneuver around losing a soldier, or potentially multiple soldiers, potentially in multiple units, out of your army. How do you play with that? It's very interesting, and I do really, really enjoy it. If you're not going to have permadeath in a game like this, this is the way to handle it. It needs to be something that is mechanically interwoven with the rest of the game and makes the rest of the game more engaging to play, in my opinion. And I think they've really done a stellar job with that. Also, of course, when it comes to overall design and balance, it does mean that the devs of Vanillaware are able to push the envelope a lot more with what they're able to do. Things like just allowing you to make riskier plays or have bigger, more aggressive pushes from the enemy, right? If I can push forward with a squad and really hammer a dangerous enemy unit, maybe lose a couple of my guys in the process, but either weaken or maybe even outright destroy that enemy units that the rest of my army can push up, that's a decision that I now get to make based on if I feel like it's worth the risk, and that's cool. It'd be a lot harder to justify that if you were losing a couple of those soldiers and they were gone for good, or it was far, far harder to bring them back, right? Unless it was way easier to recruit more units to replace them, and then that's where the resource management came in. No longer an issue of resurrection items and magic and interplay and retreating back to base and re-upping your squad, but now maybe a matter of money, of training expenses to train up and hire a new replacement for something that you lost. That can still be done, but the way it's being handled here makes the more dynamic plays that the game wants you to make and will make against you far more interesting and far less punishing in a way, while still being stressful and scary. You know, some of the down to the wire things that I've had to do, and I've seen other people say the same, that they've had to pull off just to get a win, are pretty awesome. And I don't know that we'd be able to do that if it wasn't for the fact that you can afford to lose soldiers out of a unit from time to time. It also makes bad counters and matchups less painful, and in a game like Unicorn Overlord, where you have a ton of different counter units, counterplay is a massive part of successful combat in this game. Finding yourself stuck in a situation where you just are being borne down on by an enemy squad that absolutely outdoes you in every capacity, less terrifying. Like, it's still not good. You don't want to lose a unit fully because it'll drain your valor points, and you only have so many resources to work with, again, especially on expert, on any given map. Suddenly having one less unit to maneuver around until you can build up enough valor points to deploy somebody else after you just lost valor points for having lost a unit is devastating. It is not a situation that you ever want to find yourself in, and when you do find yourself in it, it will absolutely put you on the back foot, especially with the timer bearing down on you as well. So it's still very scary, but it's less scary than if you just got ambushed by a squad of knights and suddenly 3 of your best infantry are just deleted off the face of the earth, right? That would be so much more difficult to deal with. And this system means that you still can, which is cool. It's also great because it encourages a lot of experimentation. There's been so much that we've been able to glean just from the demo of Unicorn Overlord, and it's like, what, 10, maybe 15% of the total game guesstimations here, but still. But there's so many unit combinations, abilities, different facets of different classes, growth rates, or as I'm calling them, stat sets. So much gear that completely changes the way individual characters or units can function by adding new abilities, giving you more points to work with, dramatically improving or changing stats. It's insane. There's so much to try out, especially once you start increasing the size of your units and getting more units that you can put out onto the battlefield, getting more valor abilities. There's just so much to toy with. And being able to do that and experiment without the game potentially slapping you in the face and punishing you for trying to do so by destroying a bunch of your units and losing a ton of progress in terms of characters that you've been putting a lot of effort into is phenomenal. Again, It's another way that the devs have been able to build a very dynamic, involved, interesting experience by taking advantage of the fact that they're not worried about you losing your characters forever. And that's good. That's really, really good. Like, I just finished up my 3rd run of the demo and acquired a whole bunch of stuff for Experimentation, what I would consider my first properly complete run of the demo, getting all the characters, getting all the items, finishing all the side quests that are available to finish. And there's just so much to see and do, man. I still haven't used a few of the characters basically at all. There's so many different types of builds that you can do. It's wild. It is truly, truly wild. And going through at the breakneck pace that I was to get everything to beat the demo timer would have been pretty devastating on my forces if they were able to die permanently. So, yeah, it's great for Experimentation. And really, at the end of the day, it just, like I've been alluding to, gives the devs the chance to throw so much scary stuff at you that elicits gasps and moans of despair and really gets the juices flowing and get the gears turning in your head on how you're going to try and deal with stuff. Like, the first time I saw a triple sellsword squad with instant counterattacks from the rest of the group whenever you hit any of them, that can just bifurcate one of your units in a moment's notice, was terrifying, and I loved it. It was so cool. It made it so exciting to find this new type of enemy and see exactly what the game was willing to throw at you with them right off the bat, because they're not afraid of just killing off half your army in one round of attacks, right? It's so exciting. I cannot wait to see what else there is in Unicorn Overlord that elicits that same type of feeling from me. With all the Bestial units, elves, angels, promoted classes, all the classes we haven't seen yet, the different types of battle environments we're going to run into with different types of siege weaponry and all this crazy stuff. Like, I am 100% confident that Vanillaware is going to throw so much insane BS at us. And I'm like, it feels like facing a new FromSoft boss, I think, is the feeling that I'm now realizing that I'm having here. That feeling of going through Elden Ring and entering a new zone or getting to the end of a legacy dungeon and wondering, what is it that I'm about to face? What horrifying monstrosity is about to hammer my broken body into the floor 6 times in a row before I even begin to have an idea of how to beat it, and then start clawing my way up to success from there? That's what it feels like. And I don't know that I've ever really been made to feel that way by a strategy RPG before. Maybe way, way back in the day when I was a little kid and I first played Final Fantasy Tactics for the first time on my own after watching my dad play a bunch of it. Maybe then. But I was so much younger. I was so much more inexperienced with games in general, and things were scary in a way that they aren't now. Fear of the unknown. But man, I'm excited for the unknown here. Seeing how different units play, seeing how different classes play, and seeing how Vanillaware puts it all together to really put a wall in front of you and then say, go climb it, scrub. Cannot wait for that. It's going to be a blast. And again, like, it would be painful. It would be so, so painful if permadeath was a thing in this, and it wasn't accommodated for in the same way that Vanillaware has accommodated for it not being in this. And could they do that? I think they absolutely could have. If they wanted to make permadeath a thing in Unicorn Overlord, I feel like it would have gotten just as much care as not having permadeath. But for one reason or another, they decided to go with the no permadeath route, and I mean, I'm perfectly happy that they did. I don't feel like it takes away from the experience at all. All of my concerns, all of my criticisms and worry, it's all been assuaged. I've pushed it all to the side. I'm just ready for whatever else it is that this game throws at us, because, God, it's just so, so good. That said, though, I won't keep rambling here. I wanted to take a minute. I just finished that third run of the game, and I'm feeling hype. I'm feeling very excited. I wanted to get my thoughts out there about this topic because it's something that I've been seeing a lot. I've still been getting a lot of comments on that first video where I was talking about the fact that there is no permadeath and how I was kind of disappointed. Still, to this day, seeing people watch that and talking about whether they like it or dislike it. So it's fresh on my mind, and hopefully it was an interesting little discussion for all of you. How do you feel about it, though? Are you really happy that there's no permadeath in Unicorn Overlord? Would you have preferred to see the version of the game where it did exist, and how Vanillaware would have handled that? And just what are your thoughts about all this in general? Because there's so much to discuss, and I'm very, very happy to have that discussion with y'all. With that said, though, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so much for watching. I do very much appreciate it. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Oh, and also, I just remembered. I meant to do this for yesterday's video and then forgot because time just gets away from me. But it is, at the time of this recording, Sunday, and I'm supposed to do this on Friday. It is time for me to thank all of my channel supporters. And there is suddenly a whole lot more of you than there was previously, which is extremely exciting. So, from my YouTube members, thank you. To Canadian Animator Guy, Tojo Jr., Luxor, Tenchi, Matthew Berry, King Tony, John Eaton, Captain Planet, Light B, Midday Moonlight, Matthew Snyder, RJD, Michael Poole, Dre, X13, Rock the Pudge, Segno, The Game Reaper, Lost Knight, Super Blue, and Joshua. Those last three being our newest members with their little bean icons. Welcome, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your time here with us. And then from my patrons, which this is really where you guys have been bringing it home, my word. Thank you so much to Caffeine System, 18C, Navi, Kejo, Christian Soto, Chris Muller, Yoking Haddock 67, Riley Thatcher, Firestorm 447, Stella Stallion, Faye Tail, Connor B, Jonathan Conley, Tefmon, Ryuk Oliver, Darius, Zachary Tincher, Light B, Keegan Stinson, Abigail, Gryffindor, Tajian, True Mayhem, Scott Goodrich, Jim Hamilton, Rackrung, Lightning Fang, and Holly. Y'all, you're seriously the best. Thank you so much, especially to all those new patrons, and also, of course, to everyone who's been supporting all this time. But for you newbies out there, if I've mispronounced any of your names, do please let me know in the comments. I will do my best to correct myself in the future. You never know when we first get new folks in if I'm doing it right or not. Thank you for your understanding. But yes, now I'll wrap this one up here. Seriously, thank you all. We'll be back very soon with more streams and videos. Bye-bye now.